The Sydney super fight was fantastic entertainment last night. 8 bouts that all offered something. Of the main events, one was a war that went the distance. The other was brilliant because of its brevity. To talk us through all the highlights, and there were plenty of them. We'll need 4 hours with this bloke. It's great to have boxing commentator Paul Upham join me. Paul, great to see you. I'm still high after being there last night. I know you feel similarly, but I want to start at the end because Tim Tszyu, he was clinical, he was brutal, he was brilliant. What sort of attention will that performance garner around the world?
Oh, it was like an exclamation point. When wasn't to have a knockout like that in the first round in such a big event which had been hyped up, and to leave the fans wanting more after such a quick win. It reminded you of the win of his father over Zab Judah, to have that basically clinical knockout punch in the first round. Very impressive. Look, Tim continues to progress, and the world will be taking notice. And he's talking about having a world title fight next. Whether that happens or not, we have to wait and see. But look, fans are going to certainly take notice. One, because of the Tszyu name, but when you see a knockout like that, wow, it's just impressive that a guy can do that.
Well, let's go through who he might fight next. There's the world champ, Brazilian Patrick Teixeira, #1 contender, Brian Castaño, he's an Argentinian, American, Jamel Charlo, and then Australia's Michael Zarafa would like a crack as well. In fact, could have been there last night but knocked the fight back. So let's say he fights in the first half of 2021 in Sydney. Who does Tim Tszyu go up against?
Well, they've been talking up the fight for the WBO world title, and I'm not opposed to that right now, the way Tim's looking. There's a little bit of politics involved in that the champion out of Brazil is meant to be fighting the Argentinian Castaño.
Yeah.
And the WBO president actually tweeted a few hours ago that there has been no official eliminator. I think he was just responding to some of the Australian media reports that there was an official eliminator, and that Tim's definitely going to fight for the world title. Because of the pandemic, that mandatory fight hasn't happened. It's meant to happen by February. So we just have to pump the brakes a little bit and just wait to see what happens with that. Whether the WBO gives the champion Teixeira an extension because of the pandemic, or whether they strip him of the title and order Castaño and Tim Tszyu, we have to wait now. But Tim certainly talked about that fight last night, and he wants to hold it in Sydney. And the best thing is, we showed last night we can have big fights with big stadium crowds and pay lots of money to the fighters. So why wouldn't you have it in Sydney? Indeed.
Now, he's 26 years of age, Tim Tszyu. He's now 17-0. That's the fastest knockout of his career. And it comes against a fighter who has had 23 bouts and only been beaten once. So that says something. What sort of career are we seeing rise here?
Well, I'm not going to sit here now and say Tim's going to beat his father's record and have an undefeated career and become undisputed champion. I think Tim needs, and he will know this, he needs to up the level of his competition. Now, Jamel Charlo, who you mentioned, holds the other 3 titles, and Tim is certainly not ready for him now. Charlo is really, the American is really, really good. He's got the WBA, WBC and IBF world titles. And I think Tim needs to increase his level of sparring. His father used to bring former world champions and top 10 contenders down for sparring. And you just can't spar the local guys here in Australia, no discredit to them, and improve. So I think he needs to do that. And I think there's some dangerous guys who are former world champions, Julian Williams, Tony Harrison and Jared Hurd, who I saw live in New York a few years ago, and he's really good, former world champion. And I think at some stage Tim's going to need to fight one of them before taking Charlo on, if Charlo's still the world champion, because I was really disappointed in Bowyn Morgan last night. He offered nothing, and that's why Tim was able to explode there, because he was getting nothing, no offence back. And Tim will know this. Tim's a very hard critic. He knows he needs to up the level of competition. And look, he can only fight who's in front of him and knock them out, but let's just not get too carried away at this stage.
Well, you had a lot to do with Dad, Kostya, a lot to do with him. Now, they're very big on saying we're 2 different men. We share one famous name and we love each other immensely. But as I watched him jump in, pounce on the stricken opponent last night, I couldn't help but be reminded of Kostya. Through your expert eyes, are you seeing subtle similarities as well?
Well, clearly there is, because they use the same boxing system. Costa developed the Tszyu boxing system out of the Soviet Union Boxing Academy and through the Olympics, professional undisputed career. And I've got to give a lot of credit to the trainer, Igor Gulubev, who's the uncle. He was there as an assistant to Johnny Lewis under Costa many, many, many years, and he spent thousands of hours developing the system. And I remember when Tim first started as an amateur, the trainer was Igor. It was never Costa as the trainer. Those two have worked well together. Boris, the grandfather, is there as the inspiration, as the the leader of the family. And Costa used to say that his father set the example of hard work. It's a family system. The mother, Natalia, she's been a fantastic businesswoman in her own right. I remember she used to tell me when the kids used to go to bed, she would stay up and do her tertiary education study. And I remember meeting Tim on the train one day when he wasn't boxing year 12, and I asked him about his hard work exams, and he said, "I'm doing it for mum." So it's a family dedication to excellence in whatever they do.
The other fight last night, the other main event, co-main events, the heavyweight battle. Mark Hunt, Paul Gallen. Builders, the power and weight of Hunt against the stamina of Gallen. That's the way it turned out. Gallen lands more punches. Perhaps Hunt lands the bigger punches. But primarily, did they get the decision right, unanimous in favour of Gallen?
Yeah, I thought that he won. I thought he had 4 rounds to 2 or 5 rounds to 1. But you were right. There was 2 punches there that Mark landed, and you thought Gallen was going to go. You saw the legs wobble there. There was 1 left hook that landed, and I thought, how can Paul Gallen be still standing? He is tough. But it's also the boxing skills and the cardio. And I talked about this yesterday in my preview, that MMA is completely different to boxing. We saw that with Conor McGregor against Floyd Mayweather. There's so much more cardio, and you saw the movement. The movement and the moving Mark around was what helped Gallen survive. Unbelievable punches. And then Paul, on the inside, these punches he was landing on the inside, which was actually keeping Mark at bay, it was very impressive from Paul, because Mark had so much combat experience, much more than Paul.
I wanted to ask Gal straight after the fight, how close did you come to not seeing out the second round? How close do you think it was?
Look, you saw the legs go, and the legs is always the best indicator. Look, he went through the ropes as well. There was a punch in the back
afterwards.
Look, I never felt comfortable in that entire fight. As much as I thought Gallen was winning on points, even up to that last second, I thought Mark was going to knock him out there. It was just a brilliant fight. Fans got their money's worth, and hats off to Paul Gallen. I think he keeps improving, and well done.
Yeah, Gallen unbeaten in 11 fights now, and he's called out Troy Whittaker, another mixed martial arts star. What do you make of that comment, and would you like to see him concentrate on more boxing purity?
Look, Paul's a businessman, and he understands that it's an entertainment business, and the bigger eye-catching fights are going to make him the most amount of money. The thing that confused me was Whittaker's actually a middleweight at UFC, but it's 84 kilos. Apparently he walks around closer to 100. Look, we saw Gallen weigh in 103 kilos, so Gallen's going to be the bigger guy. There was a bit of talk there over social media and a bit of criticism, and everyone seems to want to criticise Paul Gallen and say that he's not really a good boxer, but he keeps winning. He was a little bit disappointing against Barry Hall, but I think it was Barry's skills that showed through in that draw. Look, I think it's going to make him the most amount of money. And Sonny Bill Williams, who he talked about years ago fighting, Sonny doesn't really show much interest in boxing. He hasn't fought for a while, as much as there'd be a lot of money in that. I think Paul would be a favourite to be Sonny Bill Williams now because of his recent activity and improvement. But I think the Whittaker fight, surely, if Whittaker's asked for $1.5 million reportedly, well, if you're going to pay him that, why wouldn't he take the money and take the fight? And I think there'd be a lot of interest, again, cross-code promotion. So if the money can be agreed on, yeah, why not?
So if both Sonny Bill Williams and Paul Gallen were at their peak and having a fight tomorrow, you'd back Gal to beat Sonny Bill?
Only because Sonny hasn't boxed for so long. He's been away. He's been concentrating on his rugby union career and back to rugby league. He was okay. He was a novice when he started, and there was some progression there. But I think Paul Gallen has showed the dedication that with his trainer Graham Shaw, there is that subtle improvement. He's not the greatest world heavyweight. He's not going to fight Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder. Let's be realistic. But there is improvement there. But we saw last night Mark can show that he can be hurt. But look, I'd like to see Whittaker and Gallen if it can be made. Mark
Hunt, he's 46, but with his theatrics during the week and the punches he landed last night, did he show promoters around the world that I'm still good for another fight or few?
Look, he's still got the punch. There's no doubt about it. I think what hurt him was the lack of preparation as far as cardio. He was carrying a little bit too much weight for boxing. The weight might be okay for mixed martial arts, but you can't do that in boxing. It showed once again with the cardio required. He probably could have won that fight. He's going to be kicking himself this morning thinking, if I had followed up, I could have finished Paul Gallen off and knocked him out. Another spectacular knockout. So I think there'll probably be a little bit of regret there, but he'd been out of the ring for a couple of years as well. So I think if he wants to fight again, he's just got to drop that weight just a little bit, particularly if it's in boxing.
The fight on the undercard, as we leave the heavyweights and leave the punches from Gallen and Hunt that we've seen thrown a lot, and with good reason, because there were highlights throughout every bout. But this bout, Daryl Foley, Ty Telford, the commentators were saying fight of the year, fight of the decade at one stage. It was absolutely riveting from first round to the 10th.
you couldn't have summed it up better. It was just amazing. There was so much two-way action there. Ty Telford started off so strong, and Daryl Foley looked like he was gone. In round 8, he went down through the ropes. They constantly punched through with passion. Normally when a guy goes through the ropes like that, knocked down, you don't see him coming back to win on points. I thought it was a good points decision. I thought I had him 6 rounds to 4 for Daryl Foley with the point off for the knockdown. Yep. But I'd love to see it again. And look, Telford wasn't disgraced. And he's a young up-and-comer. That was only his 8th fight, where Daryl Foley had a little bit more experience and he showed tremendous chin, both and the courage and the heart in boxing. People should never underestimate how tough the sport is, and the fans got their money's worth watching on Main Event and KO. It was unbelievable performance, and I think people around the world will be watching that if they get the chance and say, wow, that was a great fight.
And it did go around the world. There were nearly 12,000 people there on a wet night in Sydney, second stadium event that we've seen after Jeff Horn up in North Queensland. So what did you make of the promotion last night with a view to what we might get down the track?
Oh, look, fantastic promotion. Credit to the fighters for putting on a fantastic show. Every fight was entertaining in its own way. And look, Australia showed we're open for business, big-time boxing. We're talking about maybe George Kambosos Jr. against Teofimo Lopez down here at lightweight for the World Championship. You know, we can put big stadium events on with big crowds, and you know, I think it was just a fantastic night for Australian boxing. We've got so many young stars coming through. We saw Brock Jarvis last week. We saw the Maloney brothers are fighting for world titles, and Tim Tszyu, exclamation point, wow. It's everything that Australian boxing needed. And most importantly, we put on a big show and it delivered. And that was important for the sport.
Let's wrap it up by finishing where we started. Tim Tszyu, I drove home last night hoping that he was fighting again tonight. Of course, he's not. How long will we have to wait, do you think, into 2021 in terms of what's a boxer's ideal turnaround after that sort of performance?
Look, Tim will be ready to fight tomorrow. He's only less than a round. I think we'll have
First 3 months?
Well, we're going to have to wait till January and see what happens with this WBO world title fight. If it doesn't go ahead, then Tim can push as an optional and say, come and get the big money in Australia. So I think we'll know in January which way it's going to happen. The promoters want to put it on here. They're prepared to put the money up. The fan interest is here. So I would hope to be maybe March or April, really early. I don't want to wait too long to see Tim Tszyu. It's like you said, when can I see Tim Tszyu again? And that's fantastic for a boxer to have fans say that, you know, you're so exciting. Let's just do it again. Wow.
Paul Upham, great to tap into your passion, great to tap into your knowledge, and let's hope we're talking about Tim Tszyu fighting in Australia again very soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Stay with us on Fox Sports News.